The 10 realities that every business owner will inevitably face. If you don't know me by now, I won't let that happen again. I am Neal Isaacs. I am the Raleigh business broker. I sell other people's businesses for a living, and I create content here on YouTube of all the things I learned along the way. So let's start with a little bit about me. I've done over $24 million of enterprise value in the deals I've done. 8 years as a practicing intermediary. I'm in year 9. I sold my business, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was 2008. I have 6 credentials presently. I tend to accumulate them as I go. They are legitimate business brokering credentials. This is what I do full time. And I've valued a ton of businesses. And again, I produce content here on YouTube. So let's get real. We're all going to die. I know that's a heavy message for the beginning of this presentation, but the reality is businesses can be immortal and humans cannot, right? So IBM, over 100 years old. GlaxoSmithKline, over 100 years old. There's a farm in Connecticut, I forgot the name of Tudley Farm, 338 years old. There's time and time again studies of businesses like Kongo Gumi out of Japan, which is, are you ready for this? 1,400 years old. So if you've started one of these businesses, including Kongo Gumi, and it's your plan to ride it out till the end, it's not a good plan. You're going to die. The business doesn't have to die. Now, not every business has to be sold. I'm an exit planner. I'm a certified exit planning advisor. So selling to a third party is just one of a lot of options. But don't assume that it's going to be you that's going to guide your business into the future. There's no reason your business has to die. But unfortunately, here it is, 2025, we're all going to die. We hadn't figured out how to solve that problem. But your business doesn't have to. So make a plan for your business. Exit is inevitable for life. So make a plan for your business. Number 2. So we've established that you're going to exit your business. There's really only 3 options. Hey, let me know if I'm wrong, if there's more options. I know there's things like ESOPs and going public, but those are typically for multi-million dollar businesses. For Main Street, lower middle market, small businesses, you can sell your business. You can transfer it to an employee or a family member. You can close the business, or you can just shrink it. A lot of professional advisors, a lot of business brokers, they just get more selective as they get older, and they just right-size their business to their lifestyle. That's kind of the same as closing the doors. You're just doing it really slowly, but there's not really another valid option. So the reason why it's important on this next slide is business owners tend to have this amorphous delineation of how they hold their assets, right? Your typical working stiff, your W-2 9-to-5er, they got half their stuff in their house and their car. They got half their stuff in their 401ks and their stocks and bonds. But the business owner is on this screen. It's like the pregnant woman. If you ever looked at a diagram of a pregnant woman, you got the stomach and you got this giant baby in there, and all the organs and stuff are kind of pushed up in the corner, right? I am a biologist. It's a funny analogy in this example, but to tie it together with the business opportunity here is the business owner, their business is their baby, right? And they put in an inordinate amount of attention in their financials. It's very dependent on that business. The non-related stuff to the business is a small fraction of that diagram. And so, it's a powerful analogy, but it's reality. Here's why it matters. You're going to sell your business. You have limited paths for exit. So your net worth is tied to your business. You got to make a plan, right? This is an inevitable reality of being a business owner. Here's another one. Number 3, business is different than real estate. This is something I talk a lot about on this channel and in the presentations that I do. Real estate almost always has value. Sure, here it is. I'm in North Carolina. We got houses on the coast that are just falling into the ocean. That's an exception. Most real estate, even if it's an old downtown and everything's closing, you can still sell that real estate and repurpose it. But a business can go to zero very quickly. It can go negative. It can be costing you money very, very quickly. All your people can quit. It is high risk. Now, the good part of it is high risk, high opportunity, but it can be high risk. Why it matters is think about this for estate planning. We talked about the options for exit. You're going to hand this down to your son or your daughter, a high risk investment. Maybe they're ready for it. Maybe that's not a burden that you want to saddle with them. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but just know that this is a highly volatile thing. It's a private investment. It's not easy to get in and out of. Business is different than real estate. For estate purposes especially, you want to think about how that's going to affect if you hand it down. Make an exit plan. Here's another point that business owners must face in the realities for exit. The type of buyer that you attract, it drastically affects the price. As an intermediary, we focus on a third-party sale. The research indicates you tend to get the highest value selling to a third party. If you're going to sell it to employees, transfer it to the family, it may be actually an easier sale, but you're probably going to compromise in price. Why? Well, your family probably doesn't have the money to pay you outright. Your employees, you know how much they pay them. They probably can't afford to pay you either. Now, they could get a loan. There's bank financing to help balance that out and to find the money. But in general, it's the third party, outside party that is probably going to pay the most. They have the time and the attention. They've probably put together the resources. It may be a strategic buyer. Third-party sales typically is the highest value. There's a lot of research that supports this. Doesn't mean you have to sell to the third party. It's a pain in the ass, I'm not going to lie, but it's something to think about for your options to exit. Here's a related point. You're going to sell it to your family. Think about Thanksgiving dinner. What do I mean by that? I mean that I've talked to several business owners, friends of mine, that said, I was going to sell it to my son or my daughter, and we brought them in and we tried it for a little bit. We kind of butted heads, and guess what? They don't talk to me anymore, right? Or I sold it to my son, and now my daughter, it's kind of this imbalance now. My son and I just talk about the business that he's inheriting, and the daughter's kind of out on an island. It can make things difficult for a family to keep it in the family. Opposite end of the spectrum, there's a giant company here in the Triangle market. It's Rho, R-H-O. And I went and listened to a presentation by the two owners of the company. It was a brother and a sister. And this is a giant pharmaceutical company. And they talked about how years and years and years ago, when they were growing up, their mother and their father had started this company. And they grew it into this significant firm. And the brother and the daughter went off and got their degrees, and they came back and they found their position in the company, and together they agreed that they wanted to be the next leaders, and they did this long transition plan, and this took years and years and years, and they achieved it. They were giving this presentation at the time when they were taking over ownership. Their parents were retiring, and their point was, this is extremely rare. A lot of stuff had to work out for us to have the right fit, to have the right capacity, to want to do this, to fit into the roles that our parents had. And guess what? We have to start thinking about the next step. What are the chances that they each have a son or a daughter that can do it the same thing as well? It's highly unlikely. So that's when it goes right, and that's extremely, extremely rare. If you look at the research of businesses being handed down, rarely does it work out. There's a lot of reasons for that, and it can make things awkward around Thanksgiving. This is a reality of business ownership, as is this. I'm going to get into the financials now. Spend some time talking about the feelings of what it's like around Thanksgiving dinner. But now I want to talk about something that happens all the time. Business owners come to my office. They talk about they want to sell. Maybe I tell them you got $1 million business, and they say, I want $2 million. I want $3 million. We go on this. These are some comps for sale price over cash flow. We show them the research. This is what your peers have sold for. And they say, I want more. My answer is usually very politely, can you make more money? Or can you adjust your expectations? Because if I told you I could get you double or triple what your peers have sold for, I'd be lying to you. And I don't want to lie to you. The answer is often, well, fine, I won't sell. Instead of selling for $1 million, I'll just keep running it. Or sometimes they say, I'll just close the doors. And my answer is, well, aren't you just saying you'll sell for $0? That's even worse than selling for $1 million. But here's the takeaway on this piece. What they say is, you know what? I'm just going to come back in 2 years. I'll come back next year. We'll do this again. Well, guess what? It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same. If you look at the history of these statistics, they don't change much over time. If you go and look at comps from decades ago, these market multiples, while drastically different between industry and individual business, the noise on either side of this line may change. They're pretty consistent. And that means, Mr. Business Owner, we're going to have the same conversation next time you come back. I'm going to ask, are you making more money, or have you managed your expectations to sell in line with your peers? I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to present market data and see if you're ready for sale. Quite often we get this, now's not the right time, so I'm just going to not do this. The numbers aren't going to change over time. It's really just, are you ready? This becomes an emotional piece of the puzzle. So let's talk about some of the things that can help the business. It comes down to, I call it the 3 Ps. If you've watched some of my content on the Raleigh Business Broker channel, do you have people? Do you have a profit? And is there a process? Can you take a vacation? That's what I mean by process. It matters because this emotional thing of, I could have done this, I should have done this, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Buyers don't really care about what you could have done or what you didn't do or what you would do unless you're going to do it for them in the future. The emotional ties to the business, they don't matter that much. Unfortunately, business is a pretty shrewd thing. Now, as an intermediary, we hold the meetings. We make sure that the buyer and the owner care about each other, that the buyer cares about the mission that the business is, and hopefully we'll continue that in the future. The coulda, shoulda, wouldas, the emotional piece, doesn't really matter when it comes to price. Are your expectations in line with what the market will bear? And do you have these qualitative factors, the 3 Ps, to go with the top of the range? So back to the CEPA, the Certified Exit Planning Advisor piece. The CEPA methodology teaches that the intangibles are 80% of the value, right? So this gets back to people, processes, and profit. Do you have the human capital, the intellectual capital? Do you have these things beyond the cash flow of the business to go for the top of the range? Those are the things that can help a lot. But the what I should have done, what type of proof do you have? Not what I could have, should have, would have done. These are some tough conversations that we have with business owners. Our conversations with business owners when they start to talk about these things that they could have, should have, and would have done is, hey, it's not too late. Do you have time? Let's do them now. Let's revisit this. And then we find out how motivated they are. Here's another thing that we see a lot, and this is number 8. You will be judged. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be judged on what you can prove. So this is more of a Main Street business thing, and we see less of this now than ever. But the days of, hey, we got a couple sets of books. Yeah, I know it shows that, but in reality, we make this. If you have taken money from the business and not reported it in some way that can be measured, preferably on your tax return, there's a high probability you're not going to be able to get paid for that, right? So we as intermediaries represent what our clients can prove. Now, there are worlds where a buyer and a seller make a deal and the buyer believes what the seller says, and maybe there's some stuff that happens and people don't pay taxes. I can tell you that definitely happens. But if you're going to hire an intermediary, you do not want to represent and put in marketing materials and put it out to the world, even in a confidential format, that this is how you make money. And by the way, it's illegal, right? So if you haven't been reporting finances, just start today. You will be compensated on what you can prove. And owners who keep the cash, they're essentially stealing from their own future. And I want to put a finer point on that. If you are saying, well, instead of putting this cash in the business and paying 20% taxes on that cash, I'm just going to keep it. Think about the fact that most businesses are on a 2 to 3 multiple. So if that cash becomes profit, you could make 200, 300% of that. But you're only saving 20%. That's one frame to look at of why it sucks to pay taxes, but put the money into the business, report it so that you can get paid for it. I won't belabor that point anymore. Let's look at this one. I believe that passive businesses are a myth. We get calls every day. Hey, I'm looking for a business that throws off cash flow, but I'm not going to quit my job. I just want to kind of do this on the side and make some money and, got a little extra cash. My advice is put that into the stock market, right? I know stock market does a little bit of this, but it doesn't do this. And businesses can do that. And I have seen passive businesses that make money. The problem is it doesn't last for long. The business owners that I see that are crushing it, they got their thumb on the pulse of their business and they're kind of losing some sleep over it, right? It's not passive. They may have a manager to manage the day-to-day, but they're managing the manager. Active businesses make money. Passive businesses are kind of coasting. They're usually not growing. It's that extra effort that makes it not passive, that makes it really perform really well. There's always eroding margins. You got to stay on top of that stuff. Strategy, we hear this a lot. Hey, you know what? Instead of selling it, I'm just going to move to the beach, install a manager, and then I don't have to sell it. I'll just keep the extra money. Rarely does that work. Here's a related topic, and this is number 10. I'm thinking about a particular client that I served one time, and they said, we got this other business, and it's taken off. And this business, it actually is kind of getting to that passive phase. We're not growing it, but we don't have to do as much work as we did. It's a mature business. But you know what? We got 20 vans on the road, and every one of those vans is driving around on the highway, and every day I'm thinking, what if a ladder falls off a truck? What if somebody gets hurt? Businesses, they're not just an opportunity to make money. They're living, breathing opportunities to get into trouble, right? We have kids. Kids get hurt sometimes. That's how businesses are. Businesses are like our children, and they're always a liability. So back to this idea of maybe I can make it passive, maybe I can do hands off, maybe someone else can just manage this. It's going to be a problem. If you have ownership in a business, that stress doesn't go away until there's total separation from the business. You prove me wrong, but this is what I see. Business ownership, entrepreneurship, it's one of the greatest things in the world. This, unfortunately, is one of the downsides of entrepreneurship. It is a liability. Now, attorneys can help with liability, but only so much. Those are some of the 10 realities of business ownership. These are the type of presentations that I give to business groups, to financial advisors, to centers of influence. I love to talk about this stuff. If I can help you in a deal or to speak to your group, reach out to me. These are some ways that you can get in touch with me. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find. I am the Raleigh Business Broker. Thanks for watching. Until next time.